The main ways that Illustrator is used is as a tracing tool, and certainly in terms of learning to familiarise yourself with the pen tool and learning to get an understanding of how you're eventually going to go about creating design flats, tracing is a really good starting point. So we're going to create a new document, and again we can choose what kind of document we want to produce. At the moment, one of the key things to think about is that I'm producing a print document, and I can choose the orientation of my image, so portrait format or landscape format. We can choose the size of my image, although to a certain extent that's largely irrelevant, and we can set up the number of artboards. Now, artboards really are almost kind of separate projects that you can be working at any one time. You can always add more artboards later on, but one of the ways of thinking about an artboard is if you're designing for a piece of software to go on a web-based website, or you're producing something which is also going to be used as a letterheading or maybe also used for some other purpose, then the artboards can be set up for enable you to sort of skip between one piece of work and another while sharing some commonality to the things. But for the moment, we'll just stick to one artboard. So we're just going to go OK. We've created a new document, and what I want to do right at the beginning is to place an image into this. So I need to go to my File menu, go to Place, and on my desktop I've got a folder called Shirts. This is just a series of shirts I've downloaded off the internet. So this shirt is nice and simple. We'll place this into the document. Now if I just click, the shirt is placed pretty much the size of the image. If I undo that command and then go place, so same shirt, go place, I can click and drag it out to the size that I want it. So just to sort of show you that. Now, if I start to work with this image, one of the things that can happen when I'm working is that I can kind of knock the image. So for the moment, I don't really want to do that. I want to lock that into position. So that's done using the shortcut Command and 2. Now if I try to move it, you can see whether I use the direct selection tool or the selection tool, it's not going to go anywhere. In terms of tracing, it might be really useful if I could manipulate that image a little bit. In particular, it's a bit strong. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to change the opacity of it. Now, of course, what you'll see is nothing's happening. Why is that? Well, the reason that is because I've locked it into position. So if I've locked something, I've locked this object into position, that's not a problem because I can unlock it. So I'm just going to unlock it all. Now that I've selected it, now I'm going to change the opacity. So I'm just going to change it down to 30%, just so it's making a nice light grey. Now I'm going to hit Command and 2 again, which will lock it into position. Now I can't move it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by taking my straight line tool, and I'm going to draw a line through the centre of this image, or pretty much the centre of this image. I don't particularly want that line to be really, really dominant, so I'm going to change the opacity of that line to 50%. Okay, and again, I don't really want that to make too much of an appearance in my illustration, so I'll select that and then again hit Command and 2. Now I've locked that into position. So the pen tool, what I'm going to do for the moment is I'm going to work from that centre line. I'm going to click and drag to another point, click and drag to another point, click down here to another point, click and down here to another point, click here to another point, click here to another point, click here to another point. Now of course, if one looks at this, one's created a shape which is made up of straight lines. So as I demonstrated before, what I can do is I can now change to my anchor point tool, and what I'll do is I'll just kind of zoom into that a little bit more. And changing to this tool, I can click on here, and as you can see, I can start to just ever so slightly manipulate the curve. Same thing here. I'm going to click on this, and again just clicking and pulling it out. Again, it's twisted round, so just turn it round the opposite way, just ever so slightly, just creating a more gentle curve just to follow that line. coming through to here, just introducing a bit more of a curve down there, coming down here, same thing. And you can see that if I actually kind of concentrate maybe more on this point, I can start to make a more sort of gentle profile to my drawing. Okay, now if I've gone to all the effort to trace this side, it would be a terrible shame to kind of have to repeat all of that work on this side. Okay, in my photograph, this is not quite symmetrical, but in my illustration, certainly my flat illustrations, my imagery will be completely and utterly symmetrical. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to now select, I've already selected this, but I'm going to select my drawing and I'm going to go to the rotate tool. Now the rotate tool, if you can't find it, is hidden. Often it's hidden underneath I'm going to choose the reflect tool. It's hidden under the rotate tool. Now if I click on this image and then click on here and click on the area here, nothing's actually happening, is it? So what I need to do is I need to double click, go to my reflection tool, and what you can now see when I double click on here, the actual options come up. So I want to flip this image on the vertical axis. I want to copy this as well, because if I don't copy this and go OK, it's just going to flick to the other side. Let's just go back again. So go to the rotation tool, double click. Okay, this time select copy, and you can see that the image is spun around, but it's spun around on the central axis, which I don't want to happen. So I'm going to go Command and Z again. Same thing again, I'm selecting this image, double click on the preview option, copy, and what I forgot to do, which is a really, really useful trick, is to use the Alt key. Now if I press the Alt key down and then click on my center line, now press copy, you can see that my sleeve, my body rather, has been copied completely to the opposite side. Now I can start to draw my sleeve. So come back to the pen tool, I can come down here, and this time I'm going to click and pull out my line to achieve that curve. I shall come back to that point, click, move to another point, and again pull out my curve, come back to there, click on that point, and I've put too many points in there, so I'm just going to stop for the moment, hit J, which will break my line. I'm going to go back to the delete anchor point tool, click that point, which brings me back to this location. Go back to my pen tool here. Now I can click on here, click on this point, hit J again. That's now stopped that line. And now I just need to make sure that I've selected these 2 points. Now, as I've been making my drawing, I've gone into isolation mode. So I've actually got these 2 points selected anyway. You can see the anchor points are highlighted here. So once again, hold the Alt key down. Sorry, go back to the reflection tool. Hold the Alt key down. Click on the middle. My option comes up. Copy. And that's not worked. Try again. Hold the Alt key down. Click on the middle, press copy, and this time I've now got a sleeve on the opposite side. Now I'm going to draw the collar. So again, pull that into shape. Pull that into shape like so. So let's follow that procedure again. Hold the Alt key down, go to the middle, make sure that the reflection tool is highlighted, hold the Alt key down, click on the middle line, copy that. It's not happened. Command and Z, hold the Alt key down, click on the middle, copy, and there we have another collar. Now what you can see obviously is that the collar over here is see-through. So this line, which is the back of this shirt, is visible through it. Now clearly that wouldn't be visible. So what we really need to do is to turn this shape into a fill. So this time I'm just going to click the whole shape and give it a white fill. Do the same on here. Click on that and give that a white fill. Now we've got the back of the collar. Click on there, click down again, come back to that particular location. Okay, so I've constructed a complete solid shape. You can see here if I go back to there, I've enclosed my path. If I now click on this part, I can now make this solid. And, oh, what have I done? I seem to have joined some other pathways. Now, if that's the case, one of the most important things to remember about Illustrator is a bit like Photoshop. Illustrator remembers what you've done. So if you hit Command and Z, and then Command and Z again, and Command and Z again, and Command and Z again, and Command and Z again, we can take ourselves back to an earlier position with our drawing.